Howdy, I am Kyle Fergusson from Into the Nexus Podcast, and this is a Mal'Ganis drafting guide. Now, Mal'Ganis is highly regarded. If you show him early in the draft, people are going to get excited and want to first pick him. That is a horrible decision if the enemy knows how to counterplay. And the whole point of a draft is to make sure you don't play into your weaknesses and you reduce those counterplay opportunities. And Mal'Ganis is highly counterable. So you need to know what you're looking for. You should be playing Mal'Ganis, however. He is an excellent hero if you have a bit more game knowledge than your enemies. He's great at zoning, creating opportunities for your team, as well as, just in general, locking down a team that has no answer to him. Again, the enemy has to actually use their counters on their counterpick heroes in order to beat you. The main reason the draft is so important to Mal'Ganis is that he has very strong abilities, but his initiation is a little bit telegraphed. You are going to be flying in with increased movement speed, but all the same flying in big straight lines towards your enemies to put them to sleep. And this CC is extreme. It's better than a power slide if your allies can control themselves, even reaching the length of something along the lines of a mosh pit, so your team can target up. Your heroics are also interruptible. There's a full second on Carrion Swarm before you become invulnerable, in which you could be stunned out of it and be exposed, as well as the more extreme ult, Dark Conversion, where you are channeling an enemy hero for 0.75 seconds, but that is also an interruptible time. You could also be hit by a healing reduction spell during that 3 seconds of health swappage. Stack on top of this your Q ability, Fell Claws, which has to slash 2 times before the third actually stuns. This all leads to lots of counterplay ability, and in order to own with Mal'Ganis, you need to make sure that things are looking good on both the enemy side and your own. When Mal'Ganis first released back in October of 2018, he was a first ban priority. Very much along the lines of Garrosh, he could do a lot of things to enemies that didn't know how to counterplay him. Now he's dropped down to 27% popularity on sites like Heroes Profile and HOTS Logs, and has only a 13% ban rate. If you play Mal'Ganis, there is a very high chance you can get him, but we need to make sure the draft is looking good first. And in that vein, we're gonna dive straight to the no zone. These are heroes you do not want to see in the draft at all when picking Mal'Ganis. And we're gonna start with the enemy side, because that's where things get really important. He has very telegraphed CC. His initiations are slower than something like an ETC, and a single pushback, a single well-timed stun can leave you exposed and extremely dead. And from my own personal experience, Lucio is at the top of this list. Sound Wave is such a bother. Every time you're trying to initiate, you get pushed back. On a 7-second cooldown, Lucio can constantly ruin every single engage you're trying to make. That same push also interrupts Dark Conversion, so you're already looking at a game where you're going to be doing Carrion Swarm in the first place. Ana is very much along these lines, a sleep, and now you're stuck there, losing the spell, losing that cooldown. The grenade is also extremely powerful at ruining your self-regeneration. Mal'Ganis should not be the heaviest burden on his healer. The healer likely has other things to do than heal Mal'Ganis the entire game, and thanks to his trait, Vampiric Touch, Mal'Ganis should for the most part be self-sustaining himself and not be a burden on the team. Grenade makes him a pretty big burden. And you could probably think of another tank who would be better at accessing Ana than someone who flies in big straight lines and is put to sleep. Ariel has a combo of the two things that are going to ruin Mal'Ganis' day: a pushback and a stun. You are going to struggle throughout the entire game once Ariel's on to your method, and you will have to make a grand correction in how you play in order to win that fight. Seeker Swarm at 20 is basically your emergency, I picked into the wrong team Mal'Ganis moment, and upon expiring, Carrion Swarm is going to shoot out bats to sleep targets so you can actually make a good initiation. Probably don't want to be engaging with your level 20 heroic, however. Not a lot of value to find there, but that's what you're gonna have to do if you pick into a bad CC support like this. Now, supports are often so concerned with keeping themselves alive that they'll readily use their CC on a tank trying to engage them. ETC is, if counterplayed, an extremely good hero against Mal'Ganis. The pushback, a face melt, the power slide, isolating you out. However, a little bit lighter in this scenario because ETCs often aren't using their abilities to counter Mal'Ganis, even though he's great at it. Uther, however, will stun anybody who comes in range of him, and is often eager to do so. It's an extremely quick stun too, and I have had more ults interrupted by Uther than any other hero in the game. Kael'thas will also fire a stun at an incoming tank, and if he's doing particularly the stun-based build, which has been popularized on this website and now across Storm League, you're gonna have a rougher time. Even though you might be able to use something like your Carrion Swarm to dodge a Pyroblast, what sort of world is Kael'thas firing a Pyroblast on the enemy tank? Well, probably not a very skilled one, so let's assume he's gonna be rocking. Garrosh can also be a bother, but this is more about the way teams play versus a Garrosh. People poke him constantly. If you try to disengage your team by sleeping Garrosh, likely someone's going to hit him with something, wake him up, and now he has all the CCs to deal with you effectively. You may be able to Carrion Swarm out, sleep out, but there's going to be problems into going into Garrosh. So much of your kit is based around CC. Mal'Ganis is a pretty low damage hero. You'll certainly feel that if you ever have to take a solo lane on Mal'Ganis. Deathwing gets to do whatever he wants around Mal'Ganis. There are some opportunities for a dark conversion, but as we've talked about, dark conversion is already taking you down the wrong path in most drafts. If everything's perfect and your only concern is Deathwing, well then dark conversion will make sure you're not concerned with Deathwing. And in that same vein, you never want to end up in the solo lane. You have a highly telegraphed incoming straight line ability for CC. Dahaka is pretty good at landing his tongue versus Mal'Ganis because his movements can be so predictable. And looking at this list, you can think of it as a tiered system. At the very top here, enemy supports are most likely to use their CCs against an enemy tank. These are the extremes that you should not draft into. In the middle here, we have heroes that aren't always gonna play the correct style. Their abilities do counter you, but they have to make sure they're using them against Mal'Ganis to actually complete that counter. And on the bottom here are lighter counters, things that'll solo well or in general cause issues for a team while they're trying to coordinate kills with Mal'Ganis. Let's talk about what's on your team that you'd rather not see. And up top here are just two heroes who have a very high likelihood of ruining a good sleep. Abathur hatting you and shooting out spines, Rhaegar giving you a lightning shield. These will wake up your sleeping targets. Oftentimes you can just fix this in the chat. Don't shield me when I'm engaging. Don't hat me when I'm engaging. Just let your team know that it's going to ruin what you're trying to set up in the first place. To that same end, Imperius and Dahaka have a tendency to just buzz around, cause a lot of noise, do random AoE spell damage. They're going to be up with you, which is nice for Mal'Ganis, but it does mean that they're going to ruin any beautiful sleeps you're trying to pull off, particularly if you have a targeted assassin who can maybe follow that up well. I also find that Hammer wants way more CC than Mal'Ganis provides, and often just auto-attacks the sleeping target right out of the CC you were trying to help them with. The stun can help clog up a team into a Hammer range, but for the most part, you're just not going to occupy that phalanx that Hammer really needs to survive. We also need to be a little concerned with diving co-tanks, and I'm going to include Bruiser any of the builds of Varian here. Varian and Diablo, when you dive, will say, "I'm coming too," and leave your backline completely open. Mal'Ganis is always trading positions into the enemy backline and returning to his team. If you're going to run a second tank, make sure that tank is going to manage the team and make sure they're safe. You're often forward. You don't want two of you forward while your entire squishy backline is exploding. Now let's talk about the things you should get excited about seeing on your team and the enemy side. First up, I love a good Li Ming. Just ready to fire the full barrage, the orb and the magic missiles straight on a sleeping target. If she's not coordinating her cooldowns with you, we can fix that with chat pretty easily. It's just such a powerful thing for Li Ming to do. And because she can in this way single target, she can get her resets and then advance onto the next sleeping target. Good Li Mings with a good Mal'Ganis are just, they're great. Same with Malfurion in that way. A nice slow root, you got 2.5 seconds of sleep, and a route following that up is just delicious. Make sure, if you can, to have a Malfurion on your team. You also heal yourself a little bit, heals over time with your own self-heals, make for a really good place for Mal'Ganis. And as I mentioned in the previous go, we want somebody to accompany Mal'Ganis when he's going deep on the enemy side, but it might not be a tank that we're looking for. I really enjoy the likes of Illidan, Malthael, and Samuro to occupy that space. As you push the enemy back, if they don't have any way to disengage Mal'Ganis, they are going to run for it. Illidan's flipping over those targets, Malthael's ruining escapes, Samuro's applying that pressure that pushes the enemy team towards you are all great options, and you can empower those maybe more iffy picks if we're looking at Illidan and Samuro here, but you can empower them with a Mal'Ganis. Lunara and Zag are just kind of in awesome win rate territory right now, but Mal'Ganis does allow them to succeed. I really like the siege damage they provide, which Mal'Ganis lacks. It's a great way to shore him up. Yes, the Hydras and everything are going to wake up your targets. In the mid game, though, we're not too concerned with that, and the XP they provide allows you to get everything you need done with Mal'Ganis in the first place. Just in general, win rate wise, I'd be happy to have a Lunara and Zagar on my team right now. A great mix of both the assassin and that tank accompanying you, Chen, Fat Illidan if you will, is just going to get a lot done with your team, cause a lot of chaos, absorb a lot of hits that Mal'Ganis maybe shouldn't during his engages. Just a beautiful place. I will also include Yrel in here, but Yrel is such a unique hero right now and often weak in lower leagues. We'll just talk about her rather than putting her on the screen. Things you'd love to see on the enemy side. Blaze. Oh, Blaze. All you gotta do is fly through him, put him to sleep, and you're already on the other side. He is going to be unable to escape using his jet propulsion. You can also use your claws to get to the other side of him. Basically, body blocking in a Blaze is an easy win. I do like countering Malthaels. I talked a little bit earlier about dodging a Pyroblast. That Kael'thas is already making a mistake by trying to Pyroblast you. So we're gonna put him right here. Yes, it feels great to see that Pyroblast coming at you and you just pop into bats and dodge the entire thing. What's actually going to target you more often is Last Rites. Malthael wants to kill the enemy tank, and here you have a great way to just negate all of Last Rites with your Carrion Swarm. After that, he's gonna have a really hard time getting anything done. But let's get to those really juicy picks that Mal'Ganis counters. Those heroes that don't have the mobility or CC to stop your engagements. Nazeebo, Zarya, and Gul'dan either have to spend heroics to try to stop you, or are going to be heavily mispositioned by your sleep. I'm also going to include in this someone personally I get very excited to see, Zul'jin. Now, he does provide a lot of pressure when you're flying towards him, but if the enemy lacks all those CCs we talked about in the previous panel, ETC, Uther, anything to truly stop you, you are going to access Zul'jin, you are going to ruin his position, and you're going to have a great time. Also, it's worth saying that Mal'Ganis has a phenomenal block talent, which should keep you safe for the entirety of your engage. I also find Mal'Ganis to be a pretty good Medivh counter. People are trying to position properly to get into portals right away, and putting them to sleep ruins those positioning and gives your team time to frame up their various CCs. Medivh is often picked to counter something like Kel'Thuzad, and Mal'Ganis' sleep can help Kel'Thuzad to line up his shots. Kel'Thuzad right now doesn't have the best win rate in the world alongside Mal'Ganis, so that's more of a cute idea if you are going to get a Kel'Thuzad on your team. I also find Mal'Ganis has a really good time against Orphea, who has to land her shots in order to use her mobility. Being asleep heavily counters those extreme positions she puts herself into, trying to get some cool Shadow Waltz business done. With all that in mind, if you want to pick Mal'Ganis, the main thing you're looking for in the draft is the order. Type something along the lines of, I will late pick a tank and show Mal'Ganis, and look for early picks of Lucio, Ana, Auriel, ETC, or Uther. Those being locked in early on the enemy side often mean those are rather skilled picks, and they will use their abilities to counter you effectively. If you start getting towards the 3rd, 4th, and 5th pick for your own team, and you haven't seen any of these heavy counters, then you can start to believe in Mal'Ganis. Not until High Diamond are you really going to see constant counterplay for Mal'Ganis. Thank you to Heroes Hearth for having me here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, ring that bell for future drafting videos. I was Kyle Fergusson, and I'll see you next week.